But yeah, of course, data over a long period of time is the only thing that really works. It's pretty interesting to see, like, someone I saw on Reddit got it introduced to Dash from TikTok because some some tweet, I think it might have been a tweet that I sent, said something about, like, you can already spend Dash at AMC theaters through DashDirect or whatever. Someone made a TikTok about that, and the TikTok blew up, and then a bunch of people are like, "Oh, I heard about this," and then they come pop in and Reddit, and it's just like, "Oh, interesting." Like,
Yeah.
at that point, I just told people in the marketing hub, "We need to get on TikTok. We need a TikTok bounty right now. Like, you just get on this thing." So yeah, well, it does appear we're live. A couple of people watching on YouTube. A bunch of people, 14, are watching on Odysee, which
All
is
right, we're up and running.
always warms my heart when people go on the decentralized path. And yeah, so hey everyone, we have a lot of cool stuff to cover. Let me just run into this intro thing, and then we'll just get started and start hacking through the questions. Yeah, so hey everyone, happy Friday. Good to see you guys. I'm joined by the one and only Ryan Taylor, CEO of Dash Core Group. So how's it been, Ryan?
Been good. How are you doing? It's been a while
Yes,
since
it
we
has
did
been a
this.
while. It has been a while, and it's been good. It just busy. Like, also when I see just how much work goes into so many things, and how few people are doing what percentage of the work, it just kind of makes me think of, like, if you wanted the entire world to grind to a halt, you just find like five guys and like take them out, and that's it. You know. So it's definitely one of those
Hopefully
things.
not. Hopefully it's not that extreme, but
Yeah, but it's
point taken.
shockingly few. Like, when you start thinking about, like, the OGs in the space, like, where would we be? Let's just take it like random three, like Gavin Andreessen, Eric Voorhees, and Roger Ver. If they just like never got into crypto, of course, maybe other people have taken their place, but we wouldn't be where we are today for sure. Let's just say,
Yeah.
and then, like,
Yeah.
Evan. Without Evan, Dash wouldn't exist. And, just like one person just moving the space forward. Vitalik, of course, has caused the whole smart contract stuff. Anyway, um, that's kind of neither here or here. Hi, everyone. Um, yeah, Hilawi says that the title is not updated. Well, the title's updated for me on the one I'm watching on my separate device, so we'll go with that one. But let me see. Let's just start going into some questions. Let me know, by the way, if the audio is good, if someone's too quiet, if someone's not, and then we'll make the adjustments as they go. But so there was a ton of questions, right? And as I'm sure, like, everyone wants to know a million different things. Um, Let me just start with the whole privacy coin super question, because there's a
Sure.
lot of sub questions to that thing. So basically, there was talking about the uh, proposed virtual asset service provider rules, which might make things like Coinjoiners, things like that, illegal or whatever. What's your take on that? Do you think that Dash is going to be affected by that?
Well, the virtual asset service provider rule set is, or the travel rule,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of in many ways very separate from the technology that's being used for the transaction itself. You look at a project like Monero, uh, and even they're saying, look, there's no requirement that this information even be passed between the network,
Mm-hmm.
um, or happen on chain. There can be a service or a direct communication between the parties involved if they're custodial in nature. And
Mm-hmm.
so the other thing to keep in mind with FATF, which is the body that issued those recommendations, is they're just an international body. They don't actually write laws. They're
Mm-hmm.
recommendations out to various countries that are part of FATF and participate in FATF, but it's their obligation to implement laws that are compliant with that if they want to. There's no obligation. And so it's like a recommendation body. And basically what that travel rule is stating is that if I'm an exchange and I'm sending money to another exchange, I should be communicating the source and destination of funds. And both parties to that transaction should be able to see that information on whose behalf are we moving money.
Yeah.
And that's very much in line with what happens with a wire transfer or any other type of monetary transfer between two institutions that are servicing customers. So I don't believe there's any reason to think that it would affect Dash in any way that it wouldn't affect any other digital asset. When it comes to the privacy topic, what has been done so far is there's been no laws on privacy coins defining them or banning them or anything of the sort. But what has been done is that there's been some guidance to exchanges from regulators saying, hey, we perceive this to be a higher risk. They didn't say what to do about that risk. They didn't say, hey, you need to change your compliance program or you need to not cover these assets. They didn't take that far of a step. They've simply said, hey, these assets may pose greater challenges. And so so far, there doesn't seem to be much of an appetite to take it much further than that. That was, I'm talking within the US here, that was the previous administration and a push right at the end of the previous administration. We haven't seen this administration take that topic up. What they've been focused on and what they've made clear over the last few weeks is we're more concerned with DeFi. They're very concerned, and probably the first area that they're going to focus on is stable coins, and specifically centralized stable coins that are supposedly backed by assets. So I just don't see the same appetite. And we've been making a lot of progress in some of the other jurisdictions. Over the last couple of years, we've gotten relisted in Australia, relisted on a major exchange here in the US. We got relisted in Gibraltar on eToro X a couple of years ago. And we've been making really good progress with Japan. We're hoping to continue to make progress there in terms of regulator understanding of what Dash is and how exchanges can meet their money laundering obligations with Dash. So I think this tide is beginning to turn the other way.
Well, that's good to hear. So as far as Australia is concerned, is Dash relisted on like most major exchanges? Obviously, that's a little bit of a broad question, but like basically, I remember there's a few Australian exchanges that are giving issues, and have they now reversed?
Well, one of them, I believe it's the largest Australian exchange, has relisted Dash. And that was done in concert with the exchange. We approached the regulator. We, explained what Dash is, what our Coinjoin feature does, the fact that there are compliance services that the exchange can acquire, and ultimately got them over that, over the concerns, and allowed the exchange to relist. So, at this point, there's no rule or anything in Australia from a regulator, certainly no law saying you can't list Dash.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. So anything about like the UK? The most recent thing I've heard seems to be that, for example, Coinbase in the UK doesn't yet enable Dash, for example.
Yeah, so UK is interesting. It's really hard sometimes to get a straight answer when you're talking to both the exchange and the regulators and trying to figure out where the miscommunication may be happening. But the regulators in the UK are saying, we haven't prohibited anything. We haven't prohibited them from listing Dash. We haven't told them they shouldn't list Dash or that Dash is a higher risk. And I think that there's more of a perception issue circulating within the UK compliance teams that Dash is somehow higher risk, and therefore business decision, maybe we shouldn't list it. And
Mm-hmm.
when we go back and forth between the two, you do get different stories about the extent of the communication and how stringently the regulator is saying don't do or don't list Dash. I think the regulator is reluctant to say you can list Dash. And so,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they're asking in the wrong way or something. And we're trying to help dispel some of these
Mm-hmm.
miscommunications that are clearly happening between the two, because the regulator
Yeah.
isn't telling us, we're not saying those things.
Yeah.
And even with Coinbase, they're international, but all of these compliance teams are local. They're all
Mm-hmm.
dealing with local laws.
Mm-hmm.
And so even within an organization, you can have a strong support in one area, and another area, a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding about what Dash even is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just go talk to Coinbase, right?
Yeah.
It's go talk to Coinbase in every jurisdiction in which they make these decisions. And so you have to talk to somebody in the EU, you have to talk to somebody in the UK, you have to talk to somebody in the US, you have to talk to somebody in Japan as they're approaching that market. So it is, and now multiply this times all the exchanges. It is
Mm-hmm.
a constant revolving door of new people. And,
Yeah.
sometimes you're starting over from scratch.
Well, let me hit this super chat we got from one time before we go into the other stuff. Hi, Joel and Ryan. Has reducing the circulating inflation had the expected effects so far? Is Dash's tokenomics now competitive with Bitcoin and other cryptos? Will there be any more proposed changes soon? So I guess sort of skipping ahead to that a little bit.
Well, I think it's early days still.
Mm-hmm.
What we have seen is that the circulating supply growth rate has dropped,
Mm-hmm.
starting with when we announced the changes, and has remained much lower than it has been in years past. I think we'll be able to declare, the degrees of success, I would say, by the end of the year, because that's when it would have had its full annualized
Yeah.
cycle in
Impact.
place. And I plan to assess the level of success at this point. We did see a large number of masternodes spin up recently.
Mm-hmm.
And so the number of masternodes on the network have been increasing.
Mm-hmm.
And so perhaps that is an indicator that it's beginning to take effect. I think that the goal was not necessarily to reach Bitcoin's level of inflation, because Bitcoin's is in the 2 to 3% range.
Mm-hmm.
And without changing our emissions schedule, which would be an even more dramatic change,
Yeah.
and would be tough to absorb at the masternode layer, we're taking a more gradual set of changes. The goal is to get the circulating supply consistently growing less than 10%. And that would put us in the neighborhood of fiat.
Mm-hmm.
And well, not lately.
Yeah.
Lately, fiat's been growing a little bit faster than that. But it allows us to at least stabilize to a degree we just haven't had. For context, we
Mm-hmm.
historically, over the last few years, when the number of masternodes stabilized, we were growing at approaching 30% year on year, and that is not sustainable. We're making that same argument about the government right now, right?
Yeah,
This
of
is not
course.
sustainable, and it wasn't, and we needed to make those changes. So I think that it's done a lot to stabilize, and I think that we've seen a much lower circulating supply growth rate.
Mm-hmm.
We are reporting on this on the quarterly calls. We've got
Yeah.
some tough year-on-year comparables for the QT report that we just did, and the Q3 report that we've got coming up. So, I think we're still going to be above 10% for those two, but
Hmm.
hopefully by the end of the year we start to drop.
Yeah, I mean that would be nice. Well, let's go back into like the privacy part of it. So a lot of people are talking about, chain analysis. So chain analysis is a company that, obviously helps and analyze blockchains in order to, detect illicit activity and things like that. And it appears, especially lately, especially among the more like libertarian minded people in crypto, really do not like them because they were using like honeypot things to sort of de-anonymize some people and transactions. And basically, at some point, there was a announced partnership with Dash and Chainalysis, and basically there seems to be a lot of misconceptions or just rather lack of information of like what the nature of that thing is. So, what is the nature of Dash's partnership with Chainalysis?
Well, yeah, so Chainalysis provides chain analytics, anti-money laundering, and a bunch of other services to uh, law enforcement and financial institutions. Um, Usually, the impetus for them engaging with them is investigative work or for the purposes of anti-money laundering uh,
Mm-hmm.
processes within an exchange. These services exist. There's a lot of them. There's TRM Labs, there's Elliptic, there's Chainalysis, there's Blockchain Intel, there's CoinFirm, um, quite a number of others. I could go on. And they all specialize in a different set of coins. They all provide a different set of services, different GUIs, but they all essentially function the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for centralized exchanges to offer services to Dash, um, they need one of those services.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they certainly can't argue to regulators that we're monitoring our transactions, we're monitoring
Mm-hmm.
the activity on the network, and we're reporting suspicious activity.
Yeah.
And so they can't list Dash without one of those services, without imperiling uh, their licenses, and so they need it. So what Dash Core Group did was help develop the ecosystem of services that we have. Chainalysis is probably the most credible of the group that
Mm-hmm.
we've managed to add Dash services to, as far as in the eyes of their customer base.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have a contractual relationship with them at this point, where we're paying them to do anything on our network. Their customers are the ones that pay them to maintain the service for Dash.
Mm-hmm.
And
Uh, yeah, Strophe just commented in the live chat, by the way. Blockchain Intel has helped masternode owners track stolen collateral in the past as well. A valuable contribution to the ecosystem.
that is also true. We have had some thefts, and we've been able to refer our users to one of these services. Oftentimes, they will contract with someone who has experienced a loss, and they will agree to a fee on
Mm-hmm.
recovery. And then they will partner with law enforcement. They'll monitor the transactions for years, if need be,
Mm-hmm.
until the perpetrator, moves the funds. Years down the line, they can still continue to track it and try to attribute it to an exchange at some point. And then, they can tell law enforcement. Law enforcement can subpoena the exchange for the information and try to further their investigation. We have had some recoveries. In one instance, a roommate stole from
I
their
heard about
roommate's
that one.
computer, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of money. So, that there are some instances where they're really helpful to the community as well, and we're always ready to recommend a solution for someone who's experienced a loss and is willing to enter into one of these agreements.
Yeah. And so to sort of summarize the partnership thing, it's basically like Dash being listed on Coinbase, and people getting mad because if Coinbase reports people to the IRS and be like, why does Dash partner with this organization that works with the IRS? It's like, well, it just Dash is like supported by this company and proactively got supported by it rather than reactively, and it's not like, you know, Dash Core Group is like using them to like help track down everyone and throw them into cages or whatever else.
No. So, I mean, if you don't like those services, don't use them. You're under no obligation to use Coinbase. But generally, you know, there's a good number or good share of the community that does want to use Coinbase for whatever reason. And so, you know, it's all about choice. And the more choices you have, I think the better it is for the consumer. You know, some people appreciate the convenience of Coinbase. Some people appreciate the user interface of Coinbase. Some people appreciate the fact that Coinbase is regulated. You know, some people fall in that camp. So, you know, we're going to try and bring whatever services are popular within the crypto space and try and make sure that Dash is a part of it.
Yeah, and so like wrapping up the whole privacy type thing, it's obviously Dash started out as a coin with its one claim to fame was that it added, you know, the Coinjoin functionality that made things easier to keep private, and since then has pivoted to other things, but was still kind of lumped into the privacy coin category. And we've already gone over ad nauseum how ridiculous the idea of a privacy coin is as opposed to, you know, anything else. But recently, because of, as we mentioned, the regulatory pressures or just the, you know, the misconceptions, it seemed like Dash, or at least Dash Core Group, has pushed harder on the we're not really a privacy coin. You can do the same thing on Bitcoin. And do you think that in retrospect, was that always a good idea? And with the context of, for example, privacy is a human right, and a lot of people are doubling down on that kind of messaging. And also because the market lumped Dash into the privacy coin moniker, saying, oh no, we're not really a privacy coin, to some of the market, the uninformed aspects of the market might say, oh, we're nothing then. Dump Dash because we're nothing. We're not even the one thing that the market thought that we did, kind of thing. So with that as a backdrop, contextual backdrop, in retrospect, was it a good idea to take the path that we've gone on?
Well, I think that Dash was the first with a non-custodial CoinJoin solution. At this point, we're not even close to the only one with that functionality. Basically, every network has a CoinJoin solution of some type.
Yeah.
All of them solve the issue of, does the coordinating server know who I am in a different way? We solve it by sending the CoinJoin through multiple parties because you're using multiple masternodes for multiple rounds. And it's effective. But for us to be receiving separate treatment from the regulator and separate treatment from the exchanges as a result, what we're asking for is a level playing field on that. We believe that our CoinJoin implementation is a good one. It has many advantages to it. But from a legal standpoint, there's no differentiating between various CoinJoin implementations as far as the regulators are concerned. And what we're pushing back against is, according to their own definitions, we're not a privacy coin. So they have gone through 4 definitions within the US market of what a privacy coin is. And we've pointed out to them 4 times that they described something that Dash isn't. And so it's gotten to the point now where it's just absurd that they continue to try. It's like trying to back into your decision with logic, and they can't find a way to do it. And so, you know, what we're arguing is that, A, it's absurd to try and come up with a binary label for what a privacy coin is or isn't.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into to a user's privacy, and that includes their own behavior on the network.
A lot of that.
And it's whose privacy is protected, under what circumstances. Is it the sender? Is it the receiver? Are there view keys that can be shared? Is there other information that can be shared within or outside of the network to provide additional transparency to the people that you're transacting with? I could go on and on. Does it matter what the behavior of other users are? In Coinjoins, it certainly does, right? Like if other Coinjoin participants that you're in a Coinjoin with end up, de-anonymizing themselves through their own actions, it reduces the level of privacy that I've experienced from those mixing rounds. So, I think that there's just this huge disconnect between why are we even doing this? Labeling something a 1 or a 0 doesn't mean that suddenly we can just delist all the quote privacy coins and continue listing everything that isn't a privacy coin supposedly, and problem solved. Everybody likes a simple answer, but unfortunately they're slowly coming to the realization that it's not nearly that simple.
Yeah, definitely, especially since if you can use, let's just say, Bitcoin and then the Lightning Network, and obviously the UTXO model with multiple addresses, but then also Lightning Network, which is completely not on chain, not really subject to the same analytics. And then you compare that with something like, let's say, Ethereum, which just has one address, right? It's account based. It's not UTXO based, just one, which is just in there. There's a giant privacy gap. But yeah.
Well, let me be clear about one thing. We plan to continue to enhance privacy. There have been a lot of innovations since we last made a major overhaul to Coinjoin. And I think that this is an industry trend. Every coin is moving in the direction of privacy coin, and we should be moving in that direction too. And I don't say, the government's definition of a privacy coin, but people value privacy, and there's important reasons for it. And the entire industry has been moving in this direction. And if they're going to treat us like one anyway, at some point we might as well incorporate some of the great work that has gone on within the space. And I wish the regulator could tell us what exactly is it about our Coinjoin implementation that is so unbelievably concerning that they feel the need to focus on Dash and name Dash specifically in their guidance.
Yeah.
And they have not been able to articulate that because they don't understand it. I know they don't understand it because I talk to them and they're under the perception that Coinjoin happens on every transaction, or they're under the perception that Coinjoin makes transactions non-viewable. They don't even have a basic, 1-day understanding of what they're regulating.
That's for sure, especially with like crazy questions, as you mentioned on Twitter, about like, give us all your customers. It's not quite that simple. So if you pivot to the biz dev and marketing kind of side of things. So I remember, obviously during the 2017 to 2019 era, I did a lot of work personally on Dash News, which reported a bunch of stuff coming out. And it was almost like every week there was 2 to 3 announcements or integrations coming out. It was like hard to keep up with. And I, made giant recap post about, everyone is integrating Dash, all these partnerships, all this kind of stuff. And then obviously that coincides with market cycles to a certain extent. But in the last, let's just say year or so, like year and a half, there's been relatively few of those kinds of things coming out. So basically, first off, like what are the major things that DCG BizDev has been working on? What are some of those major things? And for the slowdown, is it just a perception issue? Is it also like an understaffing issue? Is it those as well as just the market ranking kind of thing, where now it's just harder to get more people to pay attention to Dash and stuff like that? So yeah, what is it?
So I think that there's a few things going on in parallel. One is, we've had 2 people on business development recently. So when times got hard, that was one of the areas that took the brunt of the hit.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you need people there doing reach outs, working with the partners, trying to reach a contractual agreement, and trying to support them to get through the onboarding process. So just having fewer staff is part of the issue. We have recently expanded the team. We just hired another business development person, so we're back up to 3. We used to have more than that, but getting back up to 3, I think, will help to accelerate some things. 2, we pivoted a bit. It's not about quantity; it's about quality. And we did a lot of integrations that were announced, and we were integrated, but they didn't lead anywhere. There were a lot of smaller exchanges. There were a lot of services that had a good number of crypto-oriented users, but weren't really going to help us expand to non-crypto type users.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of individual integrations, like we were announcing, hey, Church's Chicken or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And granted, they had 17 locations, but you get the drift. And there were a lot of them like that. And what we've shifted to is targeting harder to get but more impactful integrations. So, we just made this announcement that BitFi has integrated us into Brazil, into their platform into Brazil, and they allow for your crypto to be spent at anywhere Cielo is accepted. Cielo is the equivalent, I think, of Visa.
Okay.
And they're a merchant acquirer / network at the same time. So basically, 1.5 million locations that you could now leverage BitFi to spend your Dash. That solves a huge number of access issues in one integration.
Yeah,
Something like that takes more effort. And actually, that one came through the diff. But the business development team is focused more on the larger impact ones. Another example is, we've been working on some payroll solutions, ways for people to earn Dash natively, so that the friction is now getting out of Dash and into fiat as opposed to the other way around. There's some services in Venezuela that we've been targeting and building there. There's some that we're getting licensed for the first time. We have some small businesses on it now, and we're moving up to some medium-sized businesses in the near future as we kind of develop the product. DashDirect was a partnership between 3 parties. It was the Dash Investment Foundation, Dash Core Group, and Craypay to bring that to market. That's a lot larger project than just integrating with some website or some new betting platform or something. It's just a lot more work. You're building an entire product, and you're building apps, you're building backends, you're doing a lot more work, but the reward is much larger. And so I want to be more strategic about where we're spending our time. If you look back at the decks from 2 years ago on some of the integrations we got, there were a lot of them, but how many of them really moved the needle for us as users? How many of them really moved the needle for transactions, for merchant access? And I think you'll find the answer is, there were a lot of these, but they weren't necessarily very strategic. They didn't fit together into any of the other pieces. And now we've got a real ecosystem, I'd say, that we're trying to expand upon.
Yeah, so that kind of runs into the Venezuela question. And I remember one of the Dash hit this giant hype bubble in 2017. Of course, it just, a lot of good work came out of it too, but it was also just, Venezuela and, platform being thought of to be in the very near future. Of course, delays happen and didn't turn out quite like that. But the Venezuela part was a big part of the hype thing. And obviously Dash has put a lot of effort into Venezuela, and just yesterday, I was working with someone down there to get a video made of like buying something at a local shop and stuff, and it's clearly that it's worked as far as getting large retailers and things like that to accept it. Now, what doesn't seem to be as apparent, of course, it's hard to prove these kinds of things at all, but it doesn't seem to be as apparent that there is a ton of consumer demand slash activity going through these, or at least it hasn't been reported if it is. So first off, do you think that the hardcore focus on Venezuela over the last few years has been the right thing to do in retrospect? And second, what are the prospects like, or the challenges for getting a lot more, consumer activation at merchants and like really pumping up transaction numbers, organically through actual use?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we've succeeded in Venezuela yet. And I think we've succeeded at some things, and we've learned a lot. And I still believe in the use case in Venezuela. And what we have seen, the successes we have had, let's name those. We've managed to get Dash accepted at quite a number of retailers and quite a number of brand name retailers. So it is well recognized. Merchants recognize it. And we've got, an ecosystem that is usable down there. It includes pharmacies, it includes clothing stores, department stores, it includes groceries, two major grocery store chains. So, it is a usable currency down there, probably more so than any other. And what we find is at those locations, Dash is the most used cryptocurrency. I think we got some reports from one of the grocery store chains. We're now at 49% of all their transactions, which is obviously more than any other crypto on in their stores. And it's up to, into the many hundreds of transactions a month. And so it's still a very small percentage of their total, but it's very clear that if Venezuela is to, continue its transition into cryptocurrencies, we are the leader there. And so I continue to believe that, it's a good place to continue to invest for the long term. And but here's the challenge. Here's what we found is getting merchants isn't as hard. And that's where we put all of our early effort, was in getting merchants.
I remember that, the thousands and thousands trying to add them to Discover Dash, and, legit merchants too.
Yeah. And getting merchants is not the hard part. And what we discovered is, okay, we created this ecosystem, but there aren't that many people that are actually using it. There, we see the transaction counts and they remain quite low. So how do you get people to actually acquire it? Well, right now, in order to acquire it, you have to go to an ATM. You have to, meet people for an exchange of cash. You have to, go on local cryptos. You have to do all these things. And the difficult part, and it's difficult and expensive, is to acquire it. And
yeah, of course.
Once people have dollars or something else that's widely circulating, they don't have a strong incentive. They're not getting a discount at the merchant. They're not, not the way that Venezuela is set up. And so, there aren't a lot of incentives to go through that friction. So we're doing something with that knowledge. We're now, creating these payroll systems where it solves problems for both the merchant and the employee. And now the employee is beginning to earn Dash natively. Now the friction is going the other way. Now I might as well just spend my Dash. And the employers are viewing this as a employee benefit. Hey, we're not going to hand you a bunch of bolivars that you're going to have to go out this afternoon and spend before they depreciate. We're going to give you a currency that gives you the flexibility to do your shopping when you want, and you aren't going to have that change issue. Now, they're not going to pay their whole payroll in Dash, but we're going to start somewhere. Their
Mm-hmm.
bonuses, 10% of their payroll, things like that. And now there's benefit for the employee or employer. They've got a benefit they can offer their employees and make their employees want to work for them. There's a benefit for the employees, and there's a benefit for the merchants. Now the merchants are seeing more Dash transactions relative to others.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, we are still seeing growth there.
Yeah.
A crypto buyer, for example, saw 25% growth since the beginning of the year. That's nothing to sneeze at. People are beginning to use crypto more and more, and we're beginning to capture a larger and larger share of that as people experience the different networks. So I can't say it's a mistake. At the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I can't say that we've been fully successful in Venezuela. We've been more successful than anybody else. And I think if there's a place in the world where crypto is likely to take hold, it seems like Venezuela is the place.
Yeah, except maybe countries where it's mandated by law and stuff. But that's a discussion for a
Yeah, that's a
different
whole, yeah.
time. Yeah, it obviously it's like it's a very difficult problem, and a lot of things have been solved, a lot of things have been learned from, and yeah, that's the consumer driving consumers to it is like the ultimate barrier, the ultimate last thing to be solved. And like on that note, so we had among the payment related cryptocurrency, among the competitors, Dash experienced some of the better and more consistent transaction count growth over the last few years. And sometimes when I look back at like 2017 or whatever, just how few transactions there were, it's just like, wow, like compared to the price, compared to the hype, compared to all that. And then like at the bottom of the bear market, stuff still kept on creeping up. And then the illusion bubble popped sort of in the last over the summer, right about the same time as the hash rate dropped, as in China started to get out of the mining business. Somewhere around
Yeah.
that time, there's a sharp drop in the transaction numbers, and they kind of have not really recovered very much. And so it's clearly some kind of a system or service or whatever that was producing small transactions regularly. We still, as far as I know, we still haven't figured out what it was. But it seems like there has not necessarily been that same level of transaction level growth that we thought, at least, from some perspectives. So, any thoughts on why that kind of happened?
Um, it's only hypotheses. I don't know
Yeah.
that I've seen any analysis and that would confirm any of these.
Mm-hmm.
The correlation with the changes in China is certainly one hypothesis. Perhaps, there was a crypto miner in China that was sending out transactions to every single one of their, miners, or a mining pool that was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they found a block or something.
Yeah.
It could also be that someone was using Dash as a data storage mechanism to,
Mm-hmm.
store hashes or something like that. With microtransactions. It could be that there was a microtransaction use case out there that was leveraging Dash, and as
Mm-hmm.
Dash's price crept up in 2021, they kind of made a decision to pivot somewhere else. It could also be that someone was trying to manipulate our numbers. We specifically moved to reporting the median number of transactions instead of the mean number of
Mm-hmm.
transactions per day, precisely because it was too easy for someone to blast out a bunch of transactions and get the
Yeah.
number way up there. And so we switched to median, because then you'd have to do that every single day for 90 days in order to, get the
Yeah.
median to come up significantly. And so we tried to make our metrics more difficult for anyone in the community to try and game those a little bit. And maybe that finally caught up with them. I don't know, where they just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do it anymore. I kind of, if it was manipulation, I really wish they wouldn't have done it, because now we don't, there's information in the noise, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's hard to extract the actual information.
Yeah.
And so, maybe we were growing that entire time, and we just had a view that was too high of a growth rate than reality would would suggest. Or maybe we did see a slowdown followed by growth.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, unless someone is able to come up with an analysis that is relatively conclusive about what that activity was, how long it went on, what type of, how many transactions it was, and could separate that noise out, then we could get a much better picture. But I have a feeling that's a full-time job for somebody for 3 to 6 months to try and decipher all of that. That's extremely complicated.
Yeah. So yeah, it seems like just that data it's more of a noise metric than like a real metric. And the real metrics are more, for example, the crypto buyer rates of purchases with Dash, or DashDirect purchases, either total amounts or, total number of transactions or total purchase amounts and stuff. It seems like those are the ones we have to move to these days, right?
Well, I mean, I still think most transactions are probably between exchanges or between individuals or between individuals and exchanges. And, those aren't going to be captured in any of these services that you're describing. But certainly, there should be a strong correlation there, I would assume. One thing I did notice is that the median transaction size jumped as well. And in the July period, at the same time that the number of transactions were dropping. And what that indicates is that the transactions that went away tended to be quite small. And so the amount of economic activity running across our network was not impacted very much.
Yeah.
And so I think that these tended to be very small transactions, and there just happened to be a lot of them. So, we do report on a lot of different metrics on our quarterly calls for this reason, right? No one metric tells you the full story. And, you have to really look across all of them to see, is growth occurring or not? And, across other metrics, we were also growing. So, UTXOs and payment volume and a number of other things, we track all of it so that you can get a fuller picture. You're not dependent on any one. I really do like median transaction count, though, because I think, it is a highly relevant metric.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely one thing I've noticed, like with Dogecoin was having like 40 to 50,000 per day. And then ever since they became popular, they're down at like the 10 to 15,000 per day level, possibly because the price made the feeds like priced out some use cases and stuff. And then you have things like Bitcoin Cash. I don't know exactly how much they usually do, but then they have giant spikes for a long time. And then after a few months, it goes down. Basically, it's one of those things where a lot of transaction data, when it's not at capacity, there's basically tons of room. It's harder to really, because anyone could just kind of kick those out and it doesn't cost them, That seems to be the thing. The not at capacity data is not nearly as reliable, especially on a decentralized network like Dash, where we can't actually tell who's behind each transaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much guesswork. And even when I'm looking at some of the other networks and the growth experience that they have, and I start asking around, and it's like, oh, this new game launched, and there's a transaction for every move you make in the game, and there's tens of thousands of gamers every day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, those aren't real use of the currency per se. That's using it as a database. So, I think that I think you have to look at a variety of metrics to get a fuller picture. And some of these services, like I just today got my own access to Crepay's back-end reporting, and I can start to see transactions on the like volumes and basically their dashboard, so that I can see what's happening. And when we get services like that, we can see the effects that it has when we run an ad campaign or something like that we're going to start to do for DashDirect to try and reach new users.
Yeah.
How many new account signups did we experience during the week that we ran a Facebook ad campaign? So, we'll start to, experiment with some of those things and see how we can grow the number of users, because that is a product that is appealing to people outside of
Yeah.
Dash and even outside of crypto.
Yeah. I've definitely seen some kind of I and like for lack like I'm a big bit refill user. I have for a long time. I've used other products and services. I've spent Dash locally. People use it and then they like it, but there's not this stickiness that like keeps them going. And I have noticed
Yeah.
that with DashDirect. It seems like in the differences, practical differences between Bitrefill and DashDirect are not that significant, but it's just like the tipping point of like it's kind of not worth it to now it's worth it. And there's so many people I know. Like I don't know if you ever check out on if you go to Twitter and check out C4 Chaos, I don't know if he still is, but he was a masternode operator before, and
I love
he's
following that guy.
yeah every day
If you're
he's doing
watching, watch
something.
him. He's out there spending his Dash and replenishing it, and I love it.
Yes, and putting like Cardano, swapping that over so we can use it and stuff, and just other coins. It's pretty fun. But that reminds me. So on the Dash Direct, it seems like one service has made Dash so much more useful than dozens combined in the past. And I mean, obviously, it's U.S. only for now. That can hopefully change. There's the proposals going through and all that kind of stuff. It seems to be basically like now Dash has the advantage over any other coin in practical sense for the most part. Anything that's not fiat, that you could just use it anywhere and it's non-custodial, non-KYC, and it's great. Now, first mover advantage isn't only mover advantage, right? It's like you have it until you don't. And so Dash can rest on its laurels for, who knows, 6 months, 8 months or something, and then all of a sudden it's being left in the dust again. What's next to solidify this kind of this use case? What's the next killer app or direction after Dash Direct that's being kind of pursued to give that like no one does digital cash like us kind of a thing?
Yeah. First, I think the exact user experience of Dash Direct is going to be really tough for other networks to replicate because
Mm-hmm.
it's non-custodial.
Mm-hmm.
No other coin is as fast. And so you look at comparable services like Flexa, you have to deposit your crypto ahead of time. You can't
Mm-hmm.
withdraw it. It's no
Mm-hmm.
longer your funds, basically, at that point. The only thing you can do with it is spend it. And you can never get a balance of zero because, if I spend $5 and I have $5.57 worth of crypto, I end up with 57 cents worth of crypto. Well,
Yeah.
where am I going to spend 57 cents? So, you're never able to fully utilize whatever you send to them. And, that's not the same user experience. On top of that, they claim to have 41,000 merchant locations, but if you add up those same merchants in Dash Direct, it doesn't account for 41,000. So I don't know where they get their number, but nothing else matches it right now. And we're out there expanding the network.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be another major merchant announcement coming on next Friday. It's one that I'm absolutely certain everyone will be very happy with. So look out for that. But we've got more than 40 coming in the next month.
And these are Dash Direct ones, right?
These are Dash Direct ones, yeah. And so, we're going to continue to try to pull ahead. That's what we're going to try and do with a product that really can't be replicated without some centralized service provider, depositing your funds with it.
Yeah.
The other aspect is Dash Direct. CrayPay has a lot of patents on the technology, so it can't easily be replicated outside of their ecosystem. They have patents on the instant issuance of digital gift cards to a user's phone, paid for with cryptocurrency or with credit cards. So, there are some defenses there that they have. And so, we do have this advantage and we plan to exploit it. What we've been doing up till this point is largely focusing on our own community getting to use it. And as we start to see the rate of adoption start to taper off within our own community, that's when we know it's time to start to move to, new people we've never reached before, and starting to target them with ad campaigns and things. So I have seen a willingness of people outside the Dash community to try it and use it. And if you go back to 2016, to answer the question finally, just went on a bit of a tangent there, but to answer the question more directly, back in 2016, before I was even a member of the team or whatever, I gave a presentation at the Miami Bitcoin conference, and basically said there's 3 things that you need for adoption, and you need at least 2 of them in order to have a chance at supplanting other payment types. And they are switching incentives, and number 2 is user experience. And right now, crypto can't match the user experience of centralized services, and that includes Bitcoin and Dash. I would say Dash has improved on the user experience in terms of its speed, but I should be able to send a friend request to you and never have to request another address from you again, right?
Oh yeah.
And that becomes a problem when when my dad owes me money, I make him pay me in Dash. But in order for him to do that, I have to provide him an address or whatever, and he doesn't always keep track of them or whatever. He's like, well, I think you sent it to me in an email. I can't find it. It's a pain, and it shouldn't be that way. So I think with DashDirect and solutions like it, we can build. I want to get DashDirect in more markets, right?
Of course.
But
the Europeans have been very noisy.
Yeah, I can't blame them. I love it. It's I use it all the time, and so do a lot of people at this point. But I want to get that into more markets because that has switching incentives. I save 5%. I've saved something like $200 so far, I think. And that starts to add up to some real money. So, that is a switching incentive versus credit cards. And then, what's next? It's getting usernames on the network and getting that usability factor up there. It should be every bit as easy to use as PayPal or Venmo or anything else that you use today. And we are achingly close on that front.
Yeah.
We got version 0.21 of platform working on our DevNet this week. So next step is we're making sure it's stable. We always give it 1 week. And as long as it stays stable, we're releasing to testnet version 0.21. As a reminder, version 0.23 is our release candidate to mainnet.
So very close.
We have basically 2 major security features left to complete. And that will be a product that we're ready to, test and deploy to mainnet. So we're achingly close. And it's great having these 2 things start to come together now, because I think now you're going to have that ease of use and the incentive to use it. And that's when I think we're really going to be able to test, are people willing to use their crypto?
So what was the third thing? You mentioned there's 3. You have to have at least 2 of the 3.
Yeah, the third is security. And it usually isn't one of the 2 that a new payment type enables, but PayPal was one of them. PayPal leveraged ease of use, and they leveraged security as their main messages to the market.
Yeah.
Because they were competing at a time when entering your credit card number online was pretty scary. So
it still is, if you ask me. But I don't have a credit card number.
Yeah, it was a lot more scary back then because you didn't even know what level of security people had in place, and so that's a distant third that sometimes is used as a mechanism. I would argue for cryptocurrency, it really has a hard time being security among the 2 that you select out of those 3. And the reason isn't because the transaction isn't secure. It is. It's completely non-reversible. But at the same time, that's largely the problem for the consumer. The consumer is spending a transaction that can't be reversed, and they don't have any protections on that. So if the merchant fails to deliver, they're actually out funds. They're dependent on the merchant to be an honest one. Now, when I'm buying from Best Buy or something like that, I'm very comfortable that they will honor their commitment when I make a purchase. But if I'm making a purchase from some small website I've never heard of before online, I'm probably going to be a little more cautious about sending them the equivalent of cash. So, I don't think that should be the one that we try to compete on. I think we compete on those first two: usability and switching incentives.
And I should mention, as far as like the security and the switching incentives bit, but the security part, a lot of people are afraid in certain countries, maybe not the US today, but a lot of countries are afraid of the security of the money in their bank account. And I know friends that at the beginning of last year were trying to make like cash withdrawals and were denied from their bank because the banks are severely limiting those for fear of like a bank run during like pandemic panic and stuff. And so the security of having your money and not just someone else has all your money is a thing that I think that no one cares too much about today with Dash, except for crazy people like me. But when the world gets as crazy as I am, then all of a sudden we'll start to see that, security benefit for Dash.
Yeah. And, I don't think any one model is going to go away. I think some people would worry about their own ability to keep their funds secure and not lose them, and make sure that they're backed up properly and all of that, and would prefer their funds with a custodial service. There's obvious disadvantages to that, but I think some people are likely to actually view it the other way. Again, I think the key here is to offer choices. Yeah. And for myself, I'm very comfortable custodying my own funds in a very secure fashion, where, I think there's a learning curve there, though. And not everybody is going to want to go through that learning curve. So I think, you provide people choices in education, they're going to choose the solution that's best for them. I think more people are going to become crazy like you. I didn't used to be crazy, and I'm starting to get crazier as time goes on. So
when you know too much, maybe that's a
function of life experience. Maybe that's a function of dealing with the government constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it would make a a practical anarchist out of a lot of people from just dealing with the government the way we do. But you're mentioning this we're talking about switching incentives. And crypto has struggled for adoption for years as far as what we think, which is the buy your coffee with your little phone, like that kind of thing. What it has not struggled in is adoption as far as people knowing about it, people having exposure to it, and people holding and buying it. And I think that's pretty interesting with the switching incentive. The switching incentive for crypto a lot of times is in the holding, right? Is that the incentive is you're not losing purchasing power to the degree, unless a short period of time maybe, but on the long haul, you're not losing purchasing power like you are with, any fiat, pick your fiat. And so one thing I have noticed also is people who have crypto, now they want to spend it. And it's like, what's the switching incentive to go back to fiat? It's the only way they can spend it, right? But when people have crypto, they're much, much more likely to spend. And in almost every case where I see these people using DashDirect prolifically, like all over the place, has been there's other unbanked people living off crypto like me that I know of who are racking up giant DashDirect, spending sprees. There's a lot of Masternode holders. There's new Dash people who are buying in stuff. There's people who hold other coins that are like, oh, great, I just swap it over for Dash, I can spend it. Like a key part seems to be you have crypto, and then it's just so much easier to get into it. That's like the chicken or the egg problem. That being said, has the thing that people are into all the rage these days, and for very good reason, they used to like Bitcoin for number go up because you get it and, it outperforms fiat. But then people got into DeFi and staking and things like that. And then if you can't make returns, like, we're talking about like the Coinbase earn stuff and all the other stuff, if you can't make returns on your coins easily, then like there's not the incentive to acquire them in the first place. So that as a preface to, is there any ideas of easy or prospects for easy one-click like savings account type solutions, whether it's a custodial or a non-custodial, whatever, but basically for like a wallet, people get the Dash wallet, the username one, of course, that's the one everyone's going to want, and then they just get to put in savings and get returns into their wallet that then they can spend their income right on Dash. Is there any prospects or thought of getting something like that super well integrated into the wallet?
Oh yeah. So there's something that we've already been working on, and this is out there already. Is we're working with Thorchain to integrate Dash into Thorchain, which is decentralized exchange. One of the roles you can play in that decentralized exchange is liquidity provider. So you can earn returns on Dash as a liquidity provider within the short Thorchain, and you're providing a valuable service. You're providing inventory for people to swap in and out, and that is a completely decentralized solution, and we have basically completed it. It's not Dash Core Group. I don't want to take credit. This is Ash Francis's team that has been driving the creation of it. But
through
what
the
we'd
incubator,
love to be able to do,
remember.
What we'd love to be able to do is enable the user to activate that from their Dash wallet. We're in the early stages of investigating what it would take to code a solution like that. But basically deposit, earn returns, and when you're ready to withdraw it and spend it, you can withdraw it from the Thorchain, which would take a little bit of time, but minutes, not hours. And it could be back in your spending wallet. So I think there are solutions out there that aren't dependent on centralized exchanges that we can provide. There are discussions as well, and have been for a long time, it just hasn't been the priority, is masternode shares. There are some ideas about how to implement those that Sam has talked about recently, our CTO. And we'll be exploring those probably next year to figure out if there's a way to provide pure staking as opposed to liquidity providing. The more options we have for people to earn rewards for holding Dash, the more that's actually going to raise the bar for everything else. If we can integrate liquidity providing and you can earn 40% doing liquidity providing, we might see fewer masternodes as they switch their masternodes over to providing liquidity. And what that would mean is, even if you're a masternode holder and you take no action to take advantage of these rates somewhere else, your rates are probably going to go up simply because some of the other masternode owners are shifting some of their assets into liquidity providing. So if we can provide more options to the user, whether it's masternode shares or staking on decentralized networks or anything else, it's going to benefit all of us, even if you don't directly take advantage of those things. And the great part about decentralized solutions is we don't have to worry about whether or not they have a license in the United States or in the EU or where, what kind of coverage. Right now we have Uphold in the wallet and it doesn't cover globally. And then we integrated Liquid and it doesn't cover globally. And there are no centralized global solutions. So, these decentralized solutions are great because they're going to allow people to swap and they're going to allow people to essentially stake those coins for a return.
Yeah. And that's one thing I've noticed is like all roads lead to Asgard, right? All roads seem to lead to Thorchain, as far as it seems to be one thing that solves a lot of problems with Dash in one fell swoop. And I remember when I first heard about Thorchain, I got really excited, and I probably can't take credit for bringing it to Dash because there's a few excited people, but I was one of the first people saying, everyone stop everything right now, get on this stuff right away. We need to be on this. Now, as far as, but Thorchain just, again, we're talking about decentralization, and Thorchain, while decentralized, is one of many DeFi or DEX kind of solutions. How much exploration has there been into getting into others? For example, and I know a lot of these things are wrapped, like, Ren Dash is something that's been explored. I don't know how well that's going, but a lot, like, for example, the Decred Dex is essentially, again, I haven't used it, but I've heard it's like an atomic DEX that's like a trustless atomic swap kind of a thing, and stuff like that. But other DEXs, what's been the prospects of Dash getting into those, or how much has been researched, or is it still mostly just like a mainly Thorchain kind of a thing?
Well, we obviously have limited capacity to, do new things and integrate new things into the wallet and do all of that. I agree with you. When I saw Thorchain and saw the number of people that were excited about it and were pointing me to it, I started to explore it myself. And Hillaway was a big proponent of it and pushing for us to take a look at that over at the Dash Investment Foundation. And that's when I think conversations between the Dash Investment Foundation and the community started to occur to say, hey, who could actually build this thing? I agree that it is very exciting for a lot of reasons. Usability being the top of the list. A lot of these other solutions out there, yes, they technically are capable of doing atomic swap, but atomic swaps are hard to coordinate. You have to find someone else who wants to trade the same thing as you, and they need to be able to want to do it in the same quantity as you. So one of the two of you is only going to be able to do part of your trade that you desire. And so, like, I'm on the lookout for projects that are high on the ease of use factor, because if they're not the long-term solution. They're not what people are going to use in the long term. And so you can expend a lot of energy to get a few nerds that really like to use it, but you're not going to get to the mainstream. And, I think ease of use is one of the filters that I would apply to anything that we look at. We don't have anything else currently underway. But I think once Thorchain is integrated and working well, and we've built out the solutions that can be built with it, I think it behooves us to continue looking, because we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. And second, there can be security concerns. The network,
there have been, in fact,
right now. So, I think that those issues will get worked out, but you certainly don't want all your eggs in one basket. You want to provide choice, but I don't think we want to integrate everything. I think it's important to have,
or rather, we don't want to spend resource and focus on integrating everything.
Yeah, if everybody's going to use service A, why put the effort into service B that hardly anybody's going to use? So I think we want to direct our resources towards things that really expand the capabilities of the network.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I can easily imagine that a username Dash wallet with a Thorchain staking option in it, combined with DashDirect, once the MasterCard thingy comes out with that, is kind of like the sweet killer app combination of, like, you get your savings account type thing. You get your return on staking. You can then use it, send it around easily, and then you can spend it anywhere. It seems like that's like the holy grail. We got one of those three things, or half, I would say. DashDirect is halfway to where we're talking about. You got half of one of those things out. And once Thorchain gets out, that's another one. And it's also half because it's not in the wallet yet. And then, of course, usernames are not out yet, but when they are, all those things are just coming together, and like so close, right?
Yeah, and every one of these things takes 100 times more effort than you think it does from the outside.
I wish it didn't.
I wish it didn't, because you're like, oh yeah, sure, just go do X, and like just integrate Thorchain. It's like, the amount of effort that goes into something like that is incredible. You know, and it's not just one. Everybody working on it sees their one small piece. It's like the diff supervisors worked on, you know, vetting it and figuring out, you know, how much do we want to allocate towards making sure that we, you know, get integrated as a liquidity pool, and you know, finding the developers, and the developer puts in a ton of efforts, and then you know, the Thorchain team has to put in a ton of effort to review the code and do the pull requests and do all of that type of thing. And that's before we even get to integrating it into our own services and wallets and marketing it and doing all of these things. Like, it is just a monumental effort, and that's one that's like built for crypto.
Yeah.
Now you get into something like CrayPay. We've been working on that since 2018. Like, you know, and it really, you know, late last year finally started to snowball into something that we could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and really started putting a lot of effort behind it. But, you know, getting even part of the capabilities of a network up and running are just huge efforts involving so many team members over long periods of time. And from the outside, you see, oh, there's, you know, great, we got an announcement this week. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we've been working on it for years.
Well, that's one thing that I've been personally trying to help a lot with, is making the one announcement that's huge into a bunch of smaller announcements, like getting videos done of people in every U.S. state spending, you know, DashDirect and stuff like that. It just so the news item carries out over a longer period of time. But yeah, I definitely see that. Now we have this. One thing I've noticed is Dash used to be integrated into just about any, as like one of the main batch of coins that was, you know, for use for payments. I've noticed recently, the last few years, again, this is just very anecdotal, so don't hold me too much to it, but I've noticed a lot of things have been, you know, integrating like 6 coins or something, not Dash, and it appears to be, you know, like for example, AMC theaters and people like that are like, oh, everyone, they're taking all these coins, and then every community hypes it, and then the Dash is there with his little pouty lower lip out, like, well, what about me? And it's like, so first off, my suspicion, I have a BitPay suspicion, but it appears Coinbase Commerce also doesn't seem to have Dash, and basically that seems to be a little bit of a huge missed opportunity, if it is an opportunity at all, right? What is that? Is it just those two, or is it more than that? And second, how can we make that not the case anywhere? How can we make sure that everything that integrates, like the half dozen or so coins that people use to spend things, that they have Dash on there definitely?
The big issue here is New York.
Yeah.
And we have had substantive conversations with New York regulators, several of them. And the issue is, a lot of these services either leverage another service in the background that is based in New York, or is or is not bit licensed in New York. And either that, or they are national and they don't want to have a fragmented system. So Coinbase, as an example, does not list Dash in New York at all. That prevents us from being on Coinbase Commerce. Another example is PayPal. We've had conversations with PayPal and Venmo, and they leverage another service provider to custody the funds for them, and Dash is not integrated into that service provider because of New York. And so it is extraordinarily frustrating.
Yeah.
In part because New York is unwilling to put Dash on its green list, because it won't do a thorough investigation of Dash, because none of those providers have stepped forward to request it. None of those providers step forward to request it because they perceive that New York would have an issue with Dash, and specifically privacy. And so it's a little bit of a catch-22. We've gotten near commitments from a number of entities that have said, yeah, we plan on doing it with, it's somewhere in our roadmap, but nobody's quite pulled the trigger yet. If you live in New York, hell, if you don't live in New York, call up regulators and tell them you want them to greenlist Dash, because NYDFS is just incredibly slow to issue any type of guidance. And my patience is certainly run thin. I think the community should be run thin.
Yeah.
That, regulators are just not providing any type of guidance on what is acceptable or not. And they're not providing any type of pathway for resolving those things for the coins. And that leaves everyone in a very awkward position, including the exchanges and other service providers. And that's what it boils down to. It's not that they don't see consumer demand. They do.
Yeah.
And it's not that they don't recognize Dash's advantage as a payment method. They do. They appreciate the fact that it's instant. But they're not going to create a whole new infrastructure just for Dash.
Yeah. That's sad on a few levels, but like Coinbase, for example, lists Dash, except not in New York and not in the UK, apparently, or at least from what I've told by a Coinbase customer over there. And they're able to segment it via region for their exchange, but then for the commerce solution, they just don't want to segment it, which is that's a little disappointing. That they probably should. It's
a small product for them. They don't have a financial incentive to invest in doing that, and that's the issue. So the only coins on there are the very most vanilla, blandest coins you could imagine.
Yeah, although Doge did get spicy there for a little bit with all the memes, but it also seems, it seems like Zcash, right, has succeeded in getting on Gemini, and Dash has not, and Zcash seems to be on the one hand much more suspect from a regulator's perspective, although obviously I don't care, than Dash, but also seems to be much more politically well connected for various reasons. Do you think what do you think about Dash getting on Gemini, and would that possibly have a impact into this whole problem, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the way the greenlighting system works in New York is if 2 BitLicensed firms manage to get you through their processes, then you're in consideration for it. And I don't see any reason why Dash wouldn't be greenlit based on the facts. And so I think that it's a matter of getting 2 of them to go through their own internal processes and then make the case to NYDFS. I think that Gemini is one of our better prospects there. Zcash is one indicator of that, but they've also taken the time to meet with us on quite a number of occasions. They've requested content on Dash from us and posted on their website. They're definitely more friendly towards us than other exchanges are. There are a number of other ones that are probably a close second to Gemini, but I think that Gemini is more open to it than most. And Zcash, like I said, is a perfect example of that. And so I think that we will eventually get there. And, I have conversations with them every few months to see where they're at and see what I can do and see, if there's anything we can support with regulators or anything else. So, and just keep them updated on our progress, as we roll out things like DashDirect. It does make a difference for them that, hey, maybe this is something our consumers would like to have access to. So, I think that we're just trying to grow.
I have a video of someone buying something in the state of New York with DashDirect. So, there is consumer demand in the state of New York for DashDirect for sure.
Yeah, and we're able to do that because the merchant of record is actually CrayPay. You're buying a gift card from CrayPay in Arizona. So that's the reason why a user in New York can use a service like CrayPay to actually
Mm-hmm.
pay at the merchant. And so, we aren't completely shut out of the New York market, but it takes someone acquiring some Bitcoin or something and exchanging it through, some offshore entity or something
Of course.
in order to get it, or through some coin swapping or something, or through a peer-to-peer network. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's a pain in the butt for people in New York, and
Of
there's
course.
a lot of demand there.
So we got a super chat question, but they ticked the private message box. It doesn't show up publicly, but just said, yeah, is Sam, Quantum Explorer, going to stay CTO, or is he going to be replaced by another outsider hired through a firm? And I think that that's reference to he's titled as interim CTO, and there was a listing posted, I believe, which I heard third hand or whatever. That's like a formality that has to happen at least. But obviously, I'd rather talk to the actual expert on the issue.
Yeah. So, we obviously believe the CTO position is as important as any within our
Mm-hmm.
organization, and we want to make sure that we are acquiring the best talent that we can for the network. We have an obligation to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Sam is absolutely qualified for the role. He has some incredible depth of experience and knowledge of how the Dash network works at all levels. He's worked
Mm-hmm.
on the base layer, the mobile wallets, and in platform. And so he knows the intricacies of the network more than anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
and brings incredible depth to that role. That said, we did want to make sure to open it up to see if there were some incredible talents out there that we might be able to acquire. What we're looking for is extremely rare and hard to find,
Mm-hmm.
and the number of people that can operate at the protocol level
Mm-hmm.
in a decentralized consensus-based network is extremely limited, and usually those people are extremely wedded to the projects that they're in.
Yeah, of
They were,
course.
a founder, or they're, members of the foundation and have, incredible incentives in place to stay. And so, I think that Sam is probably going to end up being our choice. It is still technically open. We've looked at over 100 candidates through a recruiter, and narrowed that down to probably half a dozen that I've actually spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that Sam is a pretty rare guy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Which, by the way, it did get a chat in the chat one time says, I bought donuts in New York with DashDirect. So apparently there's another one who's bought something in New York with DashDirect. Just as an
Yep.
aside. Okay, so this is probably going to be the final one for this because, I mean, we got through like almost all these questions. It's pretty impressed at how many we got through. It's about DCG marketing. So I can't remember if there was anyone before Fernando. Fernando might have been the first guy to head up any kind of marketing initiatives. Fernando, retired. He moved on to other things, which I can't blame anyone from in Dash from like floating away. It's it's kind of in the trenches, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
when I worked at DC, people lasted there just a few years and then they burned out. It's just kind of the way it is. But so since then, we have Arden Goldstein, who's hired as the head of marketing, and obviously a position that encompasses a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's like, here you go, run the whole thing. And so, anyway, she's been around for a few months. I don't know exactly how many months, but basically, when is the community supposed to be seeing the things that she's been working on? I remember she mentioned some things about like SEO and things that it's just hard to like see publicly, like think that work.
Yeah,
But
they're not a lot of the
yeah.
work that so her first 100 days were very much focused on diagnosing where we're at,
Mm-hmm.
inventorying what we had, evaluating our our market position and so on, and basically coming up with a plan. And what she found during the 100 days is there was a lot of infrastructure that just wasn't there yet. And she talked extensively on the last quarterly call about this. And when you look at the list of accomplishments that she had during that first quarter, it filled an entire page with a bunch of green check boxes, and she went through and talked about all of them. A lot of those were underlying technologies, like just getting the website tagged, getting the so that we could see what people were doing when they got there, putting in place surveys. You may have visited the website and been one of the random people selected for a survey to find out why are you even here and what can we do to make it easier for you to find what you need. Search engine optimization work to diagnose the issues and begin to work on a plan that would help. When you search for Dash, there was a lot of negative things that would come up when you searched for Dash cryptocurrency that was old, and things about the Instamine and stuff like that. And so something like that takes a long time to change how you come out in those algorithms. So it was doing that diagnostic work and getting those projects going that were a lot of the early work. Lately, she's been interviewing a lot to expand the team.
Yeah.
And next Thursday, we're going to be having a content manager or content creator joining the team.
Okay.
And that will allow us to put out a lot more content, and not just content, but professional content. Both through our official channels as well as start to create content that we can use for advertising and marketing and the big messages that we want to send out about DashDirect or Valkyrie or some of these others. There's also next month, you're going to see our first merchant kit. This is like a merchant kit that you as a Dash user can take to your local merchants, like mom and pop type shops, the dry cleaners that you frequent, the ice cream shop, the little local places, and you can hand them a professional packet, have the pitch, and have the stickers, the Dash stickers for the window or whatever, that you can get them onboarded. And we want to mobilize our community in new ways. So that's going to come out probably mid-October. It's all the content has been created, and we just need to do a final review of it and then get that stuff made. And then you'll be able to go to the website, request that a packet be sent to you. And if you promise to take that around to merchants, we're going to arm the community with some high quality material that they can start to take around. And then you can start to use it, right? Like if I can get my dry cleaner to use it, then, I can make that a regular part of my purchasing. And so there's some of that type activity. We also have a number of conferences that she's been organizing: Money 2020, LA BitConf, or La BitConf, the Latin America Bitcoin Conference, the Paris Blockchain Week. We may be doing a Dubai conference, but we're not committed to that yet. So there's a good deal of conferences that are being organized. We're going to be doing a lot more DashDirect activities, including a series of launches over the next weeks. The first big one is going to be announced next Friday. We're going to be doing a marketing campaign in Miami aimed at the diaspora Venezuelans living there, including some media buys and on-the-ground presence that we're going to be launching. A lot of this she'll go over during the quarterly call, and a lot of it will be out by the time the quarterly call hits.
Yeah.
But that's some of the stuff that she's been working on. There's just going to be a lot more content coming out in the immediate future. The first newsletter is going to be launched probably over the weekend, if not Monday at the very latest. And that will contain a lot of information across DCG and the community as a whole. And so there's that's being worked on. I'm not thinking of everything right now, but yeah, you're about to see a major ramp up. We also are posting a position shortly for the website, because that is a huge time sink. Keeping that maintained, and everything from the list of exchanges to updating the content on a quarterly basis of our metrics to you name it. It's just a huge time sink, and so freeing her up to work on other things would be great. And so, and it would also allow us to have a higher quality website that's more maintained and is directs people to where they want the content
Yeah.
that they want much more quickly. There's just a lot happening on the marketing front finally.
Yeah, and I will attest to some of that stuff because, like, I've been working with Arden on helping out with a little bit on the merchant kit I was mentioning. Because I've helped a bunch of merchants around here get set up to use it, and also just the conversations about Dash.org is not a good sales funnel, right? You go there, you don't convert your leads once you get them there. And so it's like, because we had a great thing in like the Dash Marketing Hub about like, oh, let's do guerrilla art, like guerrilla marketing, like street art and stuff like that. Let's just see what we can do with that. And I'm like, yeah, like for what? Just expensive brand awareness? Like, what do we do if we get people's attention? Like, what do we do to get them into Dash users? And you can send them to Dash Direct if they have crypto of some kind, or especially Dash, and then that works. But
Yeah.
for everything else, it's just hard. And so that was something that I remember speaking about specifically was the site and how it doesn't quite yet work, but it's a priority to get it to work, to actually convert, to get people what they want right up at the top.
Well, and the first step that she took there was these surveys that she ran on Dash.org. I don't, it was random.
Mm-hmm.
So not everybody who visited Dash.org got hit with one of these things, but like, we got hundreds of responses from people. Why are you here? What are you here to do? And we got some surprising answers. And the result is we're going to be restructuring the website in a way where,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be able to get to the 2 or 3 things most people are visiting for right away. And that
Mm-hmm.
is especially true for buying Dash and giving people more options for that. We have this Valkyrie trust, and you'd really have to know Dash to know that it exists. And so,
Mm-hmm.
having that as an option for people, there are many advantages that I had never even thought of before. But when we started putting together the marketing for it, it's like, oh my God, there's like a lot of reasons like I think I might put some of my money into the trust. It's a centralized entity. I'm not going to put all of it, but
Yeah.
like there are certain advantages to it and certain reasons why you would want to do it for at least a portion of your holdings. So like, I I think that we could be doing a lot to market that to people that otherwise might not be willing to hold Dash. So, we're going to be restructuring that website and having specific landing pages for specific use cases that people will navigate to much more quickly than they are now. Right now, you look at the track people take through the website; it's spaghetti,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just needs a
It's
lot of.
almost like routing a Lightning Network payment.
Yeah, and these are people interested enough to actually Google us and go to our website, and I can't imagine how many we, might be losing not having the information they're looking for at their fingertips. So, it's that conversion rate issue where we're getting them interested, and then, where's the conversion? It's the merchant kit. Oh, we get the merchant interested. What's the conversion? What's the ask? How do you get them to that next step? Okay, how do you
Mm-hmm.
actually get them a packet that says, here's how you create an account or whatever for converting or whatever you want to do? And so, yeah, it's been an eye-opening experience to kind of go through this with a professional marketing lens and come up with
Mm-hmm.
all of these solutions. So you're going to see a lot more that's visible now, because a lot of that work that up till now was in collecting the data that we needed to make those decisions. So
Yeah. Well, let's hit it with the last question and then wrap up. The very fast one is myself and other people have enjoyed things you've posted on Twitter. They seem to be you seem to do well and be insightful, be quotable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What can we do to make you tweet more?
Well, yeah, I've noticed too that I've kind of changed my tone a little bit on Twitter and let a little bit more of my personality out.
Yeah.
And I think that absolutely helps with the retweets and things. And some of my attitude is a little snarky, but it's snarky towards people we all hate.
Yeah.
And so, everybody in crypto dislikes them. So I think I'm enjoying engaging on Twitter a little bit more than I have in the past. And I find myself visiting the site a little more often. I do recognize that I'm seeing my follower count go up, which wasn't the goal, but I mean, it's something is clearly resonating. So maybe I should do a little bit more of that.
Yeah, probably, especially since Roger Ver hasn't tweeted in several months now. He must have gotten OD'd on Twitter, and so there's a vacuum that needs to be filled.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been an attitude shift in my own mind lately too, where it's gone from being like, oh, okay, Twitter is, I'm heads down during the day. I'm working, and I work like 12 hours a day, basically, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 to 7:30 at night. And so that's my day. And then I kind of view Twitter as something I do at the end of the day. And now I'm viewing it much differently. It's like, this is part of my job. And, I need to be putting key messages out there to our community to let them know that things are happening, that there are good things happening. And frankly, to expand our exposure as a project within the space. So I view it more as part of my job these days than I did even 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, sounds good. Well, thanks so much for being on. This was very, very important with lots of questions, lots of stuff to go over. There's a few that weren't. There are a few collected questions that weren't answered specifically here. What I will do tonight, not immediately, because I got to run and do something real quick, but what I will do is all the remaining ones, I'll tag you on Discord and put them in the Dash Core group channel. So whenever you have free time, you can answer that, or other DCG people can answer that. And, obviously, crammed as many as we could in the hour, 40 minutes or so. So now I have to give a little appeal to, so I'm heading up for now and hopefully decentralizing it away, because I don't want to be doing everything all the time. This thing called the Dash Marketing Hub, where we're doing a bunch of filling in the gaps between the larger initiatives. And if you want to help out, if you want to, for example, make a video of yourself using DashDirect, or get someone like myself or Ryan on a podcast or something like that, there's money for that. So hit me up. I'll get you going if you want to help out. And so now is the time for the thing we call the after party, which is just, a chat like this in a, off the air, obviously, not on the record. And sometimes I think the biggest one's 17 people after one of these podcasts. The way you do that, you go into the Dash Discord, which is staydashy.com. I'll put that in the little live chat here. And then you just start asking around, speakeasy style. I won't be there immediately. I'll be there maybe an hour or so. Sometimes it runs into the early hours where some people I see in the UK, I see the sun coming up behind them. I'm like, dude, go to bed. So yeah, that was great. Thanks again, Ryan. Any final words before we hang this up?
No final words. Some final words.
Yeah.
Some final words are I'm just really excited right now, because I think we're all getting a little flavor of what life can be like with digital currency, at least those in the US, where you could just use it as part of your everyday life. And I think there's a lot of people out there who want to do the same thing that we're doing. Yeah. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity here. And I think it's about to get a hell of a lot better when we get Platform and, Dash Pay, the username-based payment system, up and running. Because that's the dream I've been working towards since that presentation in 2016, since before I even joined the team, is addressing those things. And with one of those two things in place already, at least for those of us here in the US, it's really exciting. I think we have a platform now we can expand to other markets, you know, on the incentive side, and things just couldn't be more exciting on that front.
Mm-hmm.
And having gone through hell with this team during 2019, when people were raising their hands and saying, we don't have enough money for everybody, so don't pay me, but don't
Mm-hmm.
fire that guy. Like,
Probably
the people
that.
working here are just inspiring, and they're here for reasons that I just have such respect for the team that went through that together. We're a family, and the whole community is our family. We really care about the project, and the vision is finally coming true. And it's just really great to see.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's for sure. I'm not going anywhere. You know, I was defunded a long time ago. I don't care if I get defunded again. What else am I going to use for my groceries, right? So, yeah, that's kind of the way it is. All right. Well, have a fantastic weekend, you guys. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. And I think 2 weeks from now, Ernesto's going to be on to talk about the Horizon partnership, amongst other things. So, yeah, that'll be a fun one. So, yeah, everyone have a great weekend. And yeah, see you later.